The wine glass in my Uncle Benson's hand caught the light as he stood up at the family gathering. I watched his face shift into something cruel, something practiced. His voice carried across the room when he started talking about me. He called me a failure, a man with no direction. He mentioned the cramped room I lived in after Emma left, the jobs I lost, the months I spent barely surviving. Everyone turned to stare. My cousins looked down at their plates. My aunt pretended to check her phone. Nobody said a word in my defense. I stayed quiet, feeling the heat rise in my chest but keeping my face neutral. Finally, I spoke, my voice steady. "You're judging a man you don't know anymore." Benson laughed, loud and sharp. "Then show us, Nathan. Show us what you've become." I remembered every moment Benson had torn me down over the years. At my graduation, he told everyone I'd chosen a useless degree. When I started my first job, he said I'd be fired within months. He was right about that one, but not for the reasons he thought. At family dinners, he compared me to my cousins constantly. Derek had his law practice. Sophie managed a hotel chain. And me? I was the embarrassment, the cautionary tale parents whispered about to their kids. 3 years ago, I stopped coming to these gatherings. I deleted most of their numbers. I moved to a different part of town and started over. They thought I'd given up, that I'd crawled away to hide from my failures. They had no idea what I was actually doing. Those 3 years changed everything, but I kept it quiet. I learned coding at night after working construction during the day. My hands were rough, my back ached, but my mind was sharp. I built something small at first, just a tool to help local businesses manage inventory. Then it grew. I added features, hired freelancers, scaled slowly. I used a business name that wasn't connected to my family name. I wanted peace, not their opinions. I wanted to build something real without their voices in my head telling me I'd fail. By the second year, I was making more than I ever had. By the third year, I'd built something bigger than I'd imagined. But I told no one, especially not them. The business wasn't just doing well anymore. It had exploded in the past 6 months. We'd landed contracts with 3 major retailers. My software was running in stores across 4 states. I'd hired a small team, rented an office downtown, and started getting invited to industry events. Last month, a tech magazine ran a feature about emerging startups. My company was on the list, but I kept my personal profile low. No social media posts. No family updates. I wanted to protect what I'd built from people who'd only see it as something to use or criticize. As Benson finished mocking me, I noticed someone across the room staring at me. It was Omar, a business consultant I'd met at a conference. He was smirking, clearly recognizing me. Our eyes met briefly, and he gave me a small nod. My cousin Derek pulled me aside after Benson sat down. He put his hand on my shoulder like we were close, but his grip was tight. "Listen, Nathan," he said quietly, "just don't embarrass us again today, all right? Benson's already on edge." I pulled away from him, keeping my voice calm. "I'm not embarrassing anyone." Derek's smile didn't reach his eyes. "You know what I mean, just lay low." What Derek didn't know was that I'd found out something about him months ago. 3 years back, I'd applied for a position at a firm where Derek had connections. I was qualified, maybe overqualified, but I never got the interview. A former colleague later told me Derek had called them, said I was unreliable, that hearing me would be a mistake. He'd sabotaged me, and he thought I never knew. Benson wasn't finished. He stood again, this time with his phone in hand. He started reading old text messages out loud, messages I'd sent years ago when I was desperate. One was about borrowing money for car repairs. Another was about missing a family event because I couldn't afford gas. He read them like they were jokes, pausing for laughter. People around the room shifted uncomfortably, but nobody stopped him. He mentioned Emma, how she left me because I wasn't ambitious enough. The words hit harder than I expected, bringing back memories I'd buried, but I kept my face still. Benson looked directly at me. "Next week at the family meeting, we'll talk about your future, maybe find you some real direction." His tone was condescending, final. I nodded once and walked toward the door. Outside, the air was cooler. I leaned against the porch railing, trying to steady my breathing. Footsteps approached from behind. I turned to see Mr. Adami, an older man who'd been friends with my father before he passed. He'd always been kind, though we rarely spoke. He stood beside me quietly for a moment, then said, "Ignore him, Nathan. Some of us know what you've been building." I looked at him, surprised. "You know," he smiled slightly. "I have a nephew who works in tech. He mentioned your company last month, said you were someone to watch." His words settled something in me. I hadn't realized anyone outside my work circle knew. He patted my shoulder once. "Don't let them dim what you've built. They'll see soon enough." I walked back inside, my chest feeling lighter. Benson was talking to Derek near the dessert table. When he saw me, he straightened up, ready for another round. I approached him calmly. "Uncle Benson," I said, "what do you actually think I do now?" He laughed. "Some warehouse job, right? Or maybe you're back in construction." I shook my head slowly. "No, I haven't done that in over 2 years." His smile faltered slightly. "Then what?" I didn't answer directly. "You've been making assumptions about my life based on old information. That's dangerous." The room had gone quieter. People were listening now. Benson's face reddened. "Don't play games with me, boy." I held his gaze. "I'm not. I'm just saying you don't know me anymore." Something shifted in the air then, a subtle change in power. Derek jumped in, trying to redirect attention. He started bragging loudly about a new business deal he'd secured, funded entirely by his girlfriend's family money. He talked about the office space they'd rented, the clients they were courting. People listened politely, but I noticed a few exchanged glances. What Derek didn't know was that I made more in a single month than his entire deal was worth. I didn't need anyone's family money. I'd built everything myself. Across the room, I saw Derek's girlfriend, Vanessa. She was staring at me with a strange expression. Then she walked over. "Nathan," she said quietly, "I thought that was you. You spoke at the Entrepreneur Summit last fall, didn't you?" I nodded. Her eyes widened. "I didn't realize you were Derek's cousin." Benson suddenly changed his tone. He walked over, smiling now. His earlier harshness replaced with forced warmth. "Nathan, listen, I may have been too hard on you earlier. Family, you know, we push because we care." I didn't buy it for a second. "It's fine, Uncle." He leaned in closer. "Actually, I wanted to ask you something. You know people now, right, in business?" There it was, he wanted something. "I know some people." His smile widened. "I've been trying to connect with a few investors. Maybe you could introduce me." I looked at him for a long moment. "I don't think that's a good idea." His face tightened. "Why not?" I kept my voice even. "Because relationships are built on respect, and you've never respected me." He stepped back, his mask slipping. The rage underneath flickered across his face before he walked away. Later that evening, I overheard Benson talking to my aunt in the hallway. His voice was low but tense. "Someone said Nathan's involved in some tech thing. Do you know anything about that?" She shook her head. "He never talks to us anymore. How would I know?" Benson sounded frustrated. "He's acting different, confident. Something's changed." I stayed out of sight, listening. For the first time, I heard uncertainty in his voice. He was realizing he didn't know anything about my life now. The man who'd spent years defining me, labeling me, judging me, suddenly had no idea who I was, and that scared him. I walked past them without saying anything. Benson watched me go, his expression unreadable. The power dynamic had shifted, and we both felt it. The next day, the family gathered again for a cousin's engagement party. I almost didn't go, but Mr. Adami had encouraged me to show up. Halfway through the event, a man in an expensive suit walked in. His name was Trevor Okonkwo, a well-known businessman in the city. People immediately gravitated toward him. I was standing near the back when he spotted me. His face lit up. "Nathan, I didn't know you'd be here." He walked straight over, shaking my hand warmly. Everyone froze. Benson was across the room, staring. Trevor and I talked briefly about an upcoming project, something we discussed at a recent board meeting. When he left, the room was silent. Then the whispers started. "Who exactly is Nathan now?" someone asked. Benson's face had gone pale. Benson approached me later with a completely different demeanor. He was polite now, almost nervous. "Nathan, I didn't realize you knew Trevor Okonkwo." I nodded. "We've worked together on a few things." He forced a laugh. "That's incredible. You know, I've been trying to get a meeting with him for months." I didn't respond. He continued, maybe we could reconnect, catch up properly. I'd love to hear about what you're doing. I looked at him carefully. The man who'd humiliated me yesterday was now trying to befriend me. I'm pretty busy, uncle. His jaw tightened, but he kept smiling. Of course, but maybe soon. I walked away without answering. Around me, I could feel people's perceptions shifting. They were reassessing me, wondering what they'd missed. Derek watched from across the room, his expression dark. Derek cornered me in the hallway, his friendly mask completely gone. What are you doing, Nathan? I stayed calm. What do you mean? He stepped closer. You're trying to overshadow me, make me look small. I shook my head. I'm not trying to do anything, I'm just existing. His voice rose. You show up here with your mysterious connections, making everyone question me. It's pathetic. I met his eyes. Derek, I haven't said anything about you. You're doing this to yourself. He looked like he wanted to say more, but Vanessa appeared at the end of the hallway. She'd clearly heard everything. Her expression was cold as she looked at Derek. We need to talk, she said. Derek's face went white. She turned and walked away. He followed, leaving me standing alone. That night Benson made a mistake. He went snooping through my jacket, which I'd left hanging in the guest room. Inside the inner pocket was a document I'd printed earlier, something I'd planned to review during the drive home. It was a contract summary with my signature at the bottom. The company name was printed clearly at the top. Benson pulled it out and read it slowly. I watched from the doorway as his hand started shaking. The company name was one he'd mocked 3 years ago. He'd called it a trash startup, said it would fail within a year. Now he was holding proof that I was one of its major investors. He looked up and saw me standing there. Neither of us spoke. He carefully folded the paper and handed it back to me, his face ashen. Then he walked out without a word. The following week, the family elders called a meeting. I knew it was about me. They'd heard the whispers, the questions. They wanted answers. I arrived early and sat quietly. When everyone gathered, my Uncle Raymond, the eldest, started speaking. We've heard some things, Nathan, about your work, your connections. I nodded. What would you like to know? He hesitated. Are you doing well? I chose my words carefully. I'm stable. I've built something I'm proud of. Around the table, people shifted. Someone asked about my company. I gave vague answers, not out of secrecy, but because I didn't owe them details. Slowly, the truth leaked out anyway. Someone mentioned seeing my company featured in an article. Another person said their colleague used my software. Benson sat silently, his face tight. The whispers grew louder. By the end, the power had shifted completely. At the next family celebration 2 weeks later, Trevor Okonkwo was invited as a guest of honor. He gave a short speech about supporting local businesses and innovation. Then, unexpectedly, he turned toward me. I want to publicly thank Nathan Okoro. His vision and software have helped our retail operations grow faster than we projected. We wouldn't be where we are without his work. The room went dead silent. Every face turned toward me. I gave a small nod, acknowledging him but not making a scene. When Trevor finished speaking, people rushed over to congratulate me. I shook hands, answered questions politely. Across the room, Benson stood frozen. His face was pale, his hands gripping his drink too tightly. He'd spent years defining me as a failure. Now that definition had shattered publicly, and he had no control over the narrative anymore. Benson found me alone later that evening. His earlier arrogance was completely gone. He looked tired, smaller somehow. Nathan, he started, his voice quiet. I need to ask you for something. I waited. He took a breath. There's a contract opportunity I've been chasing. It's with a company that works with Trevor. If you could put in a word. I let the silence sit between us. Then I spoke. Uncle Benson, respect is the minimum requirement for any partnership. You've never offered me that. His face reddened. I was hard on you, yes, but that's how family pushes each other. I shook my head. No, you humiliated me. There's a difference. Before he could respond, another businessman approached. He glanced at Benson coldly. Be careful with this one, Nathan. He tried to scam me 2 years ago. Cost me a lot before I caught on. Benson's face went white as the man walked away. For the first time in years, I felt free. Not because I'd won some battle, but because I realized I'd never needed their approval. I'd spent so long carrying their judgments, letting their words shape how I saw myself. But I'd rebuilt everything in silence. I'd proven to myself that I was capable, resilient, strong. Their opinions didn't define me anymore. That evening, I spoke briefly with some younger cousins who'd been watching everything unfold. I told them about rebuilding, about walking away from people who wanted you to fail, about protecting your peace while you grow. One of them asked, "How did you stay quiet for so long?" I smiled. Because my success was never about proving them wrong. It was about proving myself right. The emotional weight I'd carried for years finally lifted. I wasn't angry anymore. I was just free. I left the event quietly, slipping out while people were still talking. Outside, my car was waiting, a sleek black sedan I'd bought 6 months earlier. I slid into the driver's seat and sat for a moment, letting the silence settle. My phone buzzed. It was my assistant, Chiamaka. "Sir, the board meeting is ready. They want the majority shareholder present." I smiled slightly. The company Benson worshipped, the one he'd spent months trying to break into, was the same company where I held controlling shares. He'd never known. I started the car, the engine purring smoothly. As I pulled away from the house, I glanced in the rearview mirror one last time. The lights from the party grew smaller, fading into the distance. I spoke quietly to myself. "Tell them I'm on my way." If you've ever been judged by people who only remembered your lowest moment, this story is for you. If someone ever belittled you because they thought you'd never rise, let this be your reminder. If you've ever rebuilt yourself silently while people waited for you to fail, know that your comeback isn't for them. It's for you. And it's already happening. The glow-up they mocked, they're about to see it. If this story felt like your story, subscribe so you never miss a story that speaks your truth. Like this video if you've ever outgrown someone's judgment. Comment, "I'm not who I used to be," if you're claiming your power back. Because the life they doubted, you're living it now.